8 years ago, the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, that was in 2014, banned the importation of 47 items into the country. Some of these items include cement, rice, processed meat, palm kernel, palm oil, processed vegetables, obviously, and then also things that have to do with poultry and processed poultry products, and so many other items that were banned in that list. And what we got then was the CBN will no longer give forex to those items. 8 years after, the new administration, the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has now decided to lift ban on these 47 items. So today, we'll be talking about the policy implication of this shift. Okay, so and specifically, I will just focus on one sector, the agricultural sector. At least, generally, we all know ever since that policy shift, ever since those items were banned in the country, we've had an increase, in fact, a drastic increase in the prices of all these goods, of all those goods, because we could no longer import those goods. But what happened? Everybody knows that the cost of producing goods and services in developed countries is far cheaper than producing those goods in developing countries. So, for example, it is cheaper when you import goods from China, when you import goods from Australia, when you import goods from Canada or even UK down to Nigeria. It is cheaper than when those goods are produced locally in Nigeria. But policies like that are not always sustainable. So when you look at the policy shift, you come to realize that price of all the goods and services were increased. And ordinarily, Nigerians continue to ask. They kept asking why the increase in the price of these goods and services. Vividly, to be precise, in 2014, the price of rice, just like I said, I'm going to focus on rice. In 2014, the price of rice then was about 5,000 to 7,000 naira. That's 50 kg. 8 years after, the same quantity, the same goods became around 48,000 naira to 50,000 naira. So the price of rice is no longer, a lot of people can no longer be able to afford, 50 kg of rice. Even people that were doing well before, right now, they are all broke and they cannot be able to afford these basic commodities. So, but that policy, as at that time, was a very good policy. Everybody knows it was a very good policy. We all have to disagree on that. We can be able to disagree on that, but that was a very good policy because when you look at the strategies for industrialization, you come to see import promotion. You have to try to promote your export promotion, import substitution rather, export promotion, then balance development, and local resource based, where you have to source your goods and services within the economy. But if you look at the cost of production here in Nigeria, it's always very high. You talk about an increase in taxes, we talk about insecurity, you talk about lack of foreign exchange, you talk about inflation, you talk about the cost of production, such as diesel, because you have to include all these costs, the fixed costs, the cost of renting, and most importantly, also where you are even going to source the money from. Banks are not giving loans. So producing in Nigeria here is not really feasible. A lot of people, that's why we continue to hear that our companies are living here, they're traveling abroad to go and some of them even living to our neighboring countries to go and continue their production. So, but now, what is the implication right now? As at the time the federal government shifted, banned the importation of these goods, a lot of people, investors, travel abroad. They were able to source for billions of dollars in loan, and they invested they invested hugely in those businesses. For example, in cement, in sugar processing, in iron, vegetables. You can see a lot of vegetable oils. You can see we have very fine quality vegetable oils now. Even the rice we're talking about here, you can see that you'll be able to find very good Nigerian rice, such that you're not even going to see any stone or shaft or anything. Very clean rice. In fact, even far cleaner than those you are going to import. But the problem is the ordinary Nigerians, the poor people cannot be able to feed. That is a problem. The poor people cannot be able to afford those goods, and because of that, a lot of people are calling for the fact. A lot of people are calling the federal government to actually lift the suspension of these goods. And now, federal government have decided to suspend that policy. But ordinarily, no country will ever survive, especially in the long run, if you don't export a lot of goods. If your import, that is balance of trade. If your balance of trade is not favorable, and the only way it can be favorable is when you export more than when you import, and that is how every economy should work. We need to try to, the federal government need to do as much as they can to encourage Nigerians to produce. We want to see made in Nigerian goods, okay, being exported abroad rather than importing everything. All these goods now that the federal government decided to lift their suspension, that people can now import those goods, is going to affect us negatively. But of course, the ordinary people don't care. And the reason is because ordinarily, you can see, if, for example, you allow people to import cement to Nigeria, likely you're going to have a bag of cement for about 1,500 naira, because it's cheaper to produce abroad than when you produce here, because of the competitive based. And that's why you can see that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, they are currently complaining about this policy. They're saying that this policy, the reason is just simple. Our local producers cannot compete with all these developed countries. They cannot compete with the producers of those developed countries, because those ones, they operate at a far lower average cost than the way our people here operate. So same apply when you allow people to bring in rice now. You don't need to be told. Once they start importation of rice, obviously the price of rice is going to crash. From the current 48 to 50,000 naira, you're definitely going to have rice even at the price of 20. Then eventually it might even crash further to 15,000 naira for 50 kg, or even maybe 10,000 naira. Obviously, because at a certain point in time, we're buying Nigerian local rice for 3,000, 4,000 naira, 5,000 naira, and why the foreign was just about 7 to 8,000. But now, because of this policy shift, a lot of people, the price of rice have skyrocketed. We can see we have a very high inflation of about 26.8%. So, what is the policy implication of this whole thing? Ordinarily, Nigerians are going to enjoy. People who are hungry, at least there's not going to be food scarcity anymore, because our farmers are not producing enough that will be able to feed the entire country. So what they are producing is far less than what people are consuming. People are consuming a lot of food, products, the cement, all those items that were banned. People are consuming a lot of them, particularly rice in this case. And the local production is not even enough for us. So definitely people are going to enjoy this policy. The price of rice is going to crash. Obviously, it's going to rise. Eventually, you might just be buying rice 50 kg for about 10 to 15,000 naira, which is very good for ordinary Nigerians. But how about those people that invested billions, that went and borrowed money to invest in rice processing companies or to invest in some of these businesses? Because you talk about import substitution, just like we said, strategies for industrialization. You can't industrialize your country. Nigeria can never be industrialized if we continue to import more than we export. Currently, when you talk about our exports, I think we only export, majorly what we export is oil. And imagine, even the oil we don't still refine it here. We have to export those crude oil to UK or to China or to United States, and then refine it and buy petroleum. So that policy is not sustainable. Even if you close the border, even if you open the border right now, you will eventually have to close that border again. The reason is because all those 47 items that the federal government just lifted their suspension, in terms of import, are goods ordinarily we should be able to produce here in Nigeria, but we don't even have any competitive advantage. We cannot be able to compete with those foreign companies. So it's okay to open the border, but however, it's going to cost Nigeria more in the future, because those are goods or items that we should be able to produce in Nigeria. So, what do you think? What do you really think about this policy? Do you think opening the border is good for us as a country? I know for us as a country, it might not really be good, but for people, individuals, it is very good. But then, what is your suggestions? What do you really think about this policy? Is it a good one? Thank you.